Chapter 1. Below the Surface. The Body and Brain Connection. Gazing at the frozen marshland, I could only see what I could see. The ice and snow covered everything like a white blanket, hiding the ground and layers of brackish marsh. I could not see beneath the frozen wasteland to where thousands of microbes and sea creatures were living out their lives, their destinies as dictated by what they are. Likewise, we can only see the surface of people's lives. We don't see the underlying conditions in the mind and body that often dictate the behavior, and all too often we judge that behavior by personal and cultural standards. We habitually attribute behavior to choice, and while there is great truth in choice, it is very difficult to ascribe choice to all circumstances. The sea creatures and microbes in the frozen marsh don't make choices. They will live and die exactly as designed unless certain elements change their destiny. A chemical spill or environmental toxins or land development would affect everything about the marshland, changing the ecosystem for years, maybe even forever. Your body is the same. Your microbes, molecules, and cells will do what they were designed to do unless there is a catalyst, something that changes their roles and what they do, often rendering the cells unable to carry out their task in your body, or even transforming them into other cells so strong and malignant that the slight changes can eventually lead to death of the body or the mind. How does it all begin? Millions of years ago, the history of your bloodline began, collecting from your ancestors traits of strengths and weaknesses, your own unique identity in blood. This, in turn, was transferred in total to the sperm and egg. We call this genetic inheritance, the color of your eyes, the possibility of inherited diseases, and thousands of other possibilities. Oftentimes, we even allude to personality traits that seem to be inherited. He's just like his grandfather, moody and hard to understand. You never know what he's thinking. Or, she's like my aunt, always positive regardless of what's going on in her life. Can we inherit green eyes and a bad temper? Is there something that makes us respond intuitively or by instinct? Like a sheepdog to sheep, a bird dog to hunting? The long line of your genetics plays an amazing part in developing who you are and how you think. One drop of blood, or just a particle of your DNA, can now tell scientists more about you than you know about yourself. The origins of your most far-distant ancestors, where they lived, and the blend of people groups that finally merged into you. There's not a lot you can do with this information because you cannot change your genetic or inherited past. You can, however, change the present, and you can change the future of your life and that of your descendants. Let's begin with how you were born. Millions of sperm swam toward your mother's egg, each one racing the next one, until you were conceived. When contact was made, the sperm released an enzyme, allowing it to enter the egg. At that moment, the race was over. The millions of combinations of inherited genetic traits were settled. You were there, and the building of you began. Your dad had contributed his side of the family, for better or for worse. While in the testes, hopefully, defective sperm was phased out, and the healthiest sperm won the race. The blueprint for your life began. Mom took over the nurturing and nourishment, and that played a major part in the formation of you. Now, if she had morning sickness, she may have missed nutrients that you needed. If she smoked, she may have passed on to you nicotine dependency. Cells in your body have cup-like receptors that open and close according to what they were designed to do for the body. They can be fooled by toxins, etc., that mimic the nutrients, etc., they were designed to receive. Interestingly, the neurotransmitters glutamate and acetylcholine receptors in your developing brain would have accepted nicotine, not recognizing it as a mimic. Low birth rate, failure to thrive, low intelligence, ADHD and ADD, as well as other problems, can be traced back to prenatal nicotine. If your grandmother or grandfather smoked, they unknowingly created a prenatal dependency for her. The first time you smoked a cigarette or used tobacco, your brain may have responded with, "Wait a minute, I remember that, and I can use it." Quickly placing the nicotine right into the glutamate and or acetylcholine receptors, it tried to do its job. After all, the brain's job is to benefit you. However, brain cells can accept counterfeits. Shortly after that first experience with nicotine, you would have wanted more. Your friend, whose mother did not smoke, may have decided after the first cigarette that she wanted no more of it. But you would have found yourself trying to get more nicotine. Perhaps you made it through without nicotine, but found yourself drawn to other drugs and alcohol. The brain is a marvelous machine, but it doesn't always know what to use and what to leave alone. It uses cravings to convince you to feed it. Those cravings often start in the womb. This is also true of alcohol. You may have been born literally wanting a drink. That's right. "Mom, could I have a shot of that? Just put it in my bottle." What's a mother to do? If you haven't yet carried a child, make sure that you start building a body now for that child. There is no place in pregnancy for drug or alcohol or nicotine dependency. No mother wants her child born with a ball and chain for a lifetime. The American Academy of Pediatricians recently released a study saying that no alcohol usage is safe in pregnancy. The body will accept alcohol, drugs, and other toxic substances into cell receptors. The body and brain will then insist on more, even while the body is making fewer and fewer of the necessary neurotransmitters for stable mental health. This cycle, which may begin in the womb, is hard but not impossible to break. Any drug, even if it is a prescription antibiotic, can affect the developing baby. Some of you may remember the thalidomide tragedy. Babies were born with limb defects or limbless. Thalidomide was thought to be a harmless new class of tranquilizers that produced relaxation and sleepiness. And it helped women with morning sickness. Over 10,000 babies were born with lifetime struggles because their moms had morning sickness and had hoped to lessen it with thalidomide. Of course, your mother's diet was of extreme importance while she was building you. Too much of this, too little of that, and you could have been born with allergies or vitamin and mineral deficiencies. As the months passed and you grew, you became a part of the household. You could hear and possibly even see in the last few months. A developing fetus opens eyes around the 7th month and will respond to a bright light. The problem is we don't actually know the effects of artificial light and how much light can enter the womb and reach the fetus. We live in a world of electricity and man-made light, and we can measure light, but we don't really know how much light from television and other sources can penetrate the womb. Nor do we know enough about microwaves from the oven and from cell phones and Wi-Fi. What is known is enough to scare us. Microwaves can penetrate the tissues of the body and the brain. Signs at convenience stores warn that microwaves are in use and may affect pacemakers by their penetration. The skin cannot stop the penetration of these waves. Likewise, the use of cell phones may be dangerous to the baby in the womb, not to mention the mother. There is growing concern about how electromagnetic fields affect all of us, as we were not designed to have these harmful rays penetrating the body. While there are many potential hazards to the developing fetus, your mom's body did the best it could to protect you. The placenta has an amazing ability to shield the baby from harm. However, the placenta could not shield you from emotional and physical duress your mom may have experienced. Domestic abuse, verbal abuse, and psychological abnormalities of the people surrounding her could have affected your development and how you viewed life from the inside out. Loud noises, conflict, and emotional pain take their toll on the baby in the womb. The baby, who hears the mother's voice in soothing and low tones, responds in the womb. The baby recognizes the mother's voice and her smell shortly after birth. Inside the womb and after birth, the baby recognizes the one who carried him or her for 9 months. Therefore, an adopted baby will need a lot of soothing, love, and cuddling to form new bonding. The first understanding of what the outside world is like occurs in the womb. If that world is rocked by emotional earthquakes, the baby can be adversely affected and can form a temperament that reflects the emotional stress in the womb. If you have struggled as long as you can remember with emotional or mental health, as well as physical health, it may not be your genes. It may be the result of a difficult 9 months in your mother's life. Your emotional responses may have begun in the womb when fear, anger, rage, hate, or other negative emotions and the neurotransmitters, the chemicals in your brain, produced accordingly crossed the placenta. You may have spent most of your gestation in a negative environment, or in the womb of an ill mother, either physically or emotionally. If that was the case, negative responses may seem natural to you. For you, the glass may be half empty most of the time. It may be difficult to see the glass as half full, as you may habitually be in a no position. It's just easier to say no to a request without even wondering if yes could work. Those early days, even before you saw light, shaped much of your personality and temperament. If you were adopted or if circumstances changed after your birth, your responses to life may have become more accepting and warm. The cells in your body, however, remember fear, pain, and trauma. Even now, you may have irrational fear, and your approach to life may be one of caution and suspicion. The good news is that you can change your outlook on life. Beginning to look below the surface of what you feel and how you react may be just the beginning of a new life for you. Below the surface of the mental and emotional disorders is an intricate pattern of cellular responses that are caused by certain enzymes, trillions of gut inhabitants, and metabolic links that shape your personality and response to stress. Just as I could not see the ecosystem of the stunning winter scene before me, mental turmoil, personality disorders, addictions, and a collapsing mind, will, and emotions can be hidden by an exterior that may be as serene and as covered as the frozen landscape. Just as the snow and ice transformed the scene and hid all the underlying elements of the microbes and sea creatures, you or someone you love may be struggling to emerge from a frozen life. But it doesn't have to stay that way. The strong and emerging field of epigenetics offers hope to change your potential genetic inheritance, and a growing understanding of how metabolism affects not only the body, but also the emotions, is shedding light on major misunderstood diagnoses. The birth process, your first impression of your new world, may have much to do with the development of emotional, mental, and addictive disorders. In the hours before labor, the woman's body responds to a fascinating system that cooperates, changing normal muscles, ligaments, and actual bones into a miracle of birth. Like Transformer toys that morph from a truck to a robot, the body becomes a birth machine. When all systems work, and work properly, a woman is able to deliver a fully developed baby that mystifies even the most skeptical. The body meets the demands of issuing a new life into the light of day. As the baby moves through the birth canal, some of the fluid in the birth canal is swallowed, and some is absorbed through the skin. These fluids contain small amounts of the mother's gut flora, the good and bad bacteria, and a tad of her digestive enzymes, as well as bacteria from her mouth. Most will have heard of probiotics and digestive enzymes that make up part of these bacteria. If you are following the latest research on emotional, mental, and addictive disorders, you are hearing about gut flora due to increasing evidence that the gut controls much about the brain and, consequently, the mind. Yes, inside your gut, digestive system, especially the stomach and small intestines, reside trillions of inhabitants. You have your own ecosystem, just like the frozen landscape and layers below it. These microbes, parasites, and yet-to-be-discovered inhabitants are busy producing or not producing neurotransmitters for the body and brain. As the baby passes through the birth canal, these microbes become a part of the baby's digestive system, greatly affecting the production of brain chemicals called neurotransmitters, the chemicals that aid in signaling between brain neurons. These chemicals determine more about your thoughts, actions, and memories than you might guess. If a mother has eaten a steady diet of processed foods, taken numerous courses of antibiotics, and has a poor colony of gut flora, so does her baby. Her gift to her infant should be a good, strong supply of bacteria to keep the gut healthy and happy. However, if she is in short supply, so is baby. Antibiotics during pregnancy can lower gut flora and allow more bad bacteria to multiply. The baby can't pick and choose. What mother has is what baby gets. It may be that inheritance, when it comes to personality and mental, emotional, and addictive disorders, begins with abnormal gut flora. Grandmother passed poor gut flora to daughter, who passed it on to baby. With cesarean birth, the transfer of gut flora in the birth canal does not happen. Life begins with very little gut flora, and that flora is similar to what is found on the skin instead of the birth canal. However, some midwives and doctors manually smear the baby's face and mouth with the body fluids, hoping to transfer these important microbes. As father and others begin kissing and holding baby, other beneficial and maybe not so beneficial microbes are transferred, colonizing the baby's gut. With baby facing a new world, the bacteria heads to its new domicile, the baby's gut. Its job is to prepare the gut to digest breast milk, a little at a time. If the baby is breastfed, the baby begins to suckle colostrum, introducing antibodies and building a tiny ecosystem. A baby is born with open spaces in the gut, making it permeable, which enables nutrients from mother's milk to pass into the body rapidly, with little need for digestion. This is convenient for the first few months, but eventually the gut has to be prepared for food. A child receiving mother's milk continues to receive mother's gut flora from the milk, preparing the baby gut for food in future months. Breast milk creates a mucus coating which is designed to seal the gut, enabling only the right size molecules of nutrients to pass through the walls. Without breast milk, the sealing of the baby's gut is compromised. For some babies, it takes as long as 6 months to seal, especially those born cesarean or by difficult birth. Normally, it takes 2 to 4 months for a baby's gut to seal, but the first 20 days are the most important. Giving a baby processed foods and adult foods, soda pop, sweets, etc., can kill off good gut flora and cause bacterial changes in the gut, bringing distress and pain. Mom, in an effort to comfort baby without even realizing the source of the pain, may administer a pain soother, such as acetaminophen, without realizing that the gut is not prepared for such a shock. Even with the best sealed baby gut, certain foods and a lack of good bacteria can cause the gut to be too open, too permeable. This allows toxins to pass into the bloodstream and into the body. Toxins from formula or from breast milk containing overflow toxins from the mother, such as yeast, alcohol, high sugar consumption, pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, and other toxins, can pass from mother to child. Infant formula containing vegetable oil, soy, sugar, corn, cow milk, and additives cannot properly be assimilated in an infant gut. Instead, toxins can enter the tissues of the body, affecting genetic expression as well as the brain and nervous system. An irritable bowel lacking beneficial bacteria and overgrown with yeast and other harmful microbes can cause an unhappy baby and developing child. Giving an infant baby food before 6 months of age can add to improper gut development. From pre-birth to death, the gut will continue to colonize bacteria. From the time a child reaches adulthood, he or she will be carrying about 4 pounds of bacteria, enzymes, parasites, and microbes. It's hard to believe that you have that many visitors in your gut, but the truth is that's how many we know about. There's probably many, many more. These friendly and unfriendly visitors reflect where you were born, who your ancestors were, and what foods you were designed to eat from your native homeland. The Human Microbiome Project, a part of the Human Genome Project, has discovered much about how microbes govern our bodies and brains. See hmpdacc.org. For example, their research says about 100 trillion inhabitants live in the gut. Like the ecosystem of a frozen wasteland, they do their work, for us or against us, unseen by the naked eye. Perhaps as high as 80 to 90% of your immune system is bacteria, fungi, viruses, and other microorganisms, your microflora. If the microbes get out of balance, you become physically or mentally ill. An unhealthy baby gut can not only cause an unhappy baby, but also possibly set up a chain of events in the body that affects lifetime struggles with mental, emotional, and addictive disorders. For one child, it could be an autoimmune disease. For others, learning and behavior problems, or even serious mental disorders like schizophrenia. An infant with high toxic levels will usually begin to display symptoms around age 2, which is the age when many infants are diagnosed with autism. In the developing child, other learning and behavior problems may be identified as parents struggle to figure out what's wrong with my child. Repairing the gut can go a long way toward healing the brain due to the high production of neurotransmitters in the gut. In lab tests, rats with sterile guts and low gut flora showed high risk-taking behavior. How does this translate to the human child? The ecosystem of the gut is as fragile as the brain. Too much of this can mean too little of that when it comes to neurotransmitters like GABA, glutamate, serotonin, dopamine, and others. Building a better balance of gut flora can mean a more balanced brain, one that can begin to acquire the social and academic skills that so many children and adults lack in our present society. Working 24/7, your gut should be your body's best friend and the organ you consciously feed and care for. Ignoring the gut's needs and demands is usually painful, as the gut sends out its distress signals, smelly gas, rumblings, and discontented sounds, and pain. However, most of the damage and malfunctioning is silent. The takeover, gradual. Yes, there is definitely something wrong, but for so long now we've been looking in the wrong direction. Psychologists have looked at experiences with other humans as the basis for mental and emotional disorders. Addiction has been greatly misunderstood as simply the consequences of making bad choices. The much more behind these disorders is slowly emerging as discoveries are made about how the body truly functions and how it influences the mind.